Have you ever stopped to wonder if human nature has, actually changed at all over the last century? I mean, sure, we've got smartphones now.
Right, we're launching rockets into space and all that.
Exactly. But the hearts beating inside our chests, the quiet, desperate struggles we face, are they really any different from the people who lived 100 years ago?
That is the big question.
It is. And welcome to this deep dive for the Simplified Summary YouTube channel. If you're someone who loves pulling back the hidden layers of literature and society, please hit that subscribe button.
And definitely smash the like button on this video.
Yes, please do. And share your valuable comments below to support the content. We honestly read every single one. Today, we're looking at an incredibly rich collection of translated story excerpts.
From Munshi Premchand's iconic book, Mansarovar Part 1.
Right. And our mission here isn't just to summarize stories. We want to mine these fragments to uncover some heavy, tameless truths.
Truths about poverty and, well, the loss of childhood innocence.
Deeply ingrained class divides and the raw resilience of the human spirit in early 20th century India.
It really is a remarkable collection to unpack. And, to set the right analytical tone for our conversation today, you'll see our visual backdrop has shifted a bit.
Oh yeah, it looks great.
Thanks. We're looking at a rustic Indian village scene. Think a sprawling, ancient banyan tree, sun-baked mud houses, and dusty, unpaved pathways.
It definitely sets the mood.
And this setting isn't just set dressing, it's crucial. Premchand's genius lies entirely in his ability to take these seemingly simple, isolated village microdramas and use them to rip the Band-Aid off massive, systemic, societal macro issues.
Right, he doesn't write sweeping historical epics about kings and generals.
Exactly. He writes about a struggling farmer, or a little boy at a fair, or a neglected wife, and through them, he holds a mirror up to the entire human condition.
And the very first mirror he holds up in this collection reflects our childhood. Let's start with a story called Gulli Danda.
Ah, yes, Gulli Danda.
For context, Gulli Danda is an indigenous childhood game. It's somewhat like a precursor to cricket or baseball, played in the dirt with a stick and a small wooden peg.
A very classic village game.
Right. So the narrator of this story has grown up to become a highly successful, wealthy district engineer. But he gets a wave of nostalgia and decides to track down his childhood friend.
A lower caste man named Gaia.
Yeah, Gaia. And back when they were kids, Gaia was the absolute undisputed champion of the dirt field. And what really jumps out in the text is that Gaia used to physically wrestle the narrator for a turn.
He treated the narrator as a complete equal.
Totally ignoring the fact that the narrator came from a wealthy, high-status family. The narrator even tried to bribe Gaia with a guava once to get out of playing his turn.
And Gaia flat out refused. The rules of the game were all that mattered.
Exactly. Which is exactly how children operate, right?
Right. They exist in this brief, uncorrupted state of pure equality. But what's fascinating here is how that equality just evaporates when they grow up.
It really does.
Because when the engineer finds Gaia and they go out to play the game again as adults, the dynamic has completely shifted.
It's actually really tragic to read. They go out to play, and Gaia deliberately plays terribly. He constantly misses the peg, and he lets the narrator cheat.
He essentially just hands the narrator the win.
Yeah. The narrator has this crushing realization that Gaia isn't playing with a childhood friend anymore. He's humoring a boss. But let me push back on this for a second. Is Gaia just being overly polite?
How do you mean?
Like deferring to a guest who hasn't played in years.
Ah, I see. No, it's much deeper and much more insidious than mere politeness. It's internalized oppression. Premchand is showing us how societal hierarchies and class consciousness inevitably infect and destroy pure human bonds.
Because as kids, the rules of Gulli Danda were the only laws that existed.
Exactly. But as adults, the unspoken rules of society, like the rigid class and caste structures, override everything else. Gaia has internalized his lower societal status so deeply that he physically can no longer see the engineer as an equal.
Not even on a dusty playing field.
Right. He polices his own behavior to submit to that artificial hierarchy. The innocence isn't just lost, it's been forcefully extracted by society.
That brings us perfectly to another kind of lost childhood. In the story Idgah, we follow a little boy named Hamid.
A very famous story.
It is. So it's the festival of Eid, and all the village children go to the fair, while his friends are spending their few coins on fragile clay toys, like little figures of lawyers, water carriers, policemen, and stuffing their faces with sweets. Hamid resists.
He walks past all of it.
He does. He takes his entire tiny allowance and spends it on a pair of heavy iron tongs, a chimta, And he does this so his grandmother won't burn her hands making rotis over the open fire anymore.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's one of the most striking depictions of poverty in literature. Poverty has forced Hamid into a state of premature maturity.
He literally can't afford the luxury of being a carefree child.
Exactly. He has to think like a provider.
But he doesn't just quietly accept that misery, which is what I love about him. He uses a child's imagination to cope with it. Hamid ends up convincing his friends that his iron tongs are actually an unbreakable superhero weapon.
Right. He calls the tongs a brave tiger that can easily smash all their fragile clay toys to dust.
He takes this incredibly mundane, heavy tool of domestic labor and mentally transforms it into an object of absolute pride.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Hamid represents the psychological resilience of the impoverished mind. He doesn't have the luxury of those delicate clay toys, so he redefines the very concept of value.
It's a survival tactic.
It is. Think about it. The fragile clay toys of the wealthy children are performative. They will inevitably break and turn back to mud. But Hamid's iron tongs, which are a deeply practical sacrifice out of love for his family, will endure.
It's a profound metaphor for the endurance of the working class against the fleeting, superficial wealth of the upper classes.
Spot on.
You know, Hamid sacrificing his childhood comfort feels like he's basically in training for the kind of brutal adult survival we see in our next story.
Oh, Poos Raat.
Yes, a chilling one called Poos Raat, or A Winter Night. We meet Halku, a desperately poor farmer, and his loyal dog, Jabra.
Out in the open fields.
Right, on a pitch-black, freezing winter night, trying to guard the crops. Halku is so cold he feels his blood literally turning to ice. To survive, he's forced to blindly gather dead leaves in the dark to create a makeshift fire.
And he's literally jumping over the glowing embers just to keep his body from shutting down in the freezing wind.
The visceral detail in Premchand's writing here is remarkable. You can almost feel the biting wind.
It's a portrait of absolute degrading desperation. A man who doesn't even have a basic blanket to protect himself from the lethal elements.
And then comes this incredibly bitter irony. While Halku is finally getting a fleeting moment of warmth by his little leaf fire, a herd of wild animals, nilgais, invade his field.
And they completely decimate his crop.
He hears them eating his livelihood. But he is so paralyzed by the cold and so anchored by the brief comfort of the fire that he just can't bring himself to get up and chase them away.
He just stays by the fire.
Yeah. The crazy part happens the next morning. He's standing in the ruins of his field. His wife is absolutely furious. Financial ruin is guaranteed. But Halku feels a strange, secret relief.
Because the crop is gone.
Exactly. Which means he won't have to sleep out in the freezing cold anymore.
It's a devastating look at human psychology when pushed to the absolute brink. It's basically Maslow's hierarchy of needs folding in on itself.
Survival mode strips away everything abstract.
Precisely. When your immediate physical suffering is that extreme, the abstract concept of future financial ruin or even starvation months down the line takes a back seat to the immediate desperate relief of just not freezing to death tonight.
The system has ground him down so far that losing everything feels like freedom.
We see another kind of system grinding people down in Thakur Kuan, the Thakur's well.
Right. Here we follow Gangi, a lower caste woman. Her husband is deathly ill from drinking foul, rotting water from their local well.
So to save his life, Gangi sneaks out in the dark to the upper caste Thakur's well to steal clean water.
She knows that if she's caught, she's going to face severe beatings, maybe even death.
This raises an important question, and we really need to pause here to clarify the concept of untouchability regarding water sources in this era, because it's vital to understanding Gangi's stakes.
It wasn't just a rule about property, right?
No, not at all. There was a deeply entrenched systemic belief that if a lower caste person drew water from an upper caste well, they would spiritually pollute the water. The upper castes believed the physical touch of someone like Gangi would contaminate them.
So she isn't just stealing a resource. In the eyes of the landowners, she is threatening their spiritual purity.
Exactly.
And that makes what happens next so infuriating. While Gangi is hiding in the shadows, terrified for her life, she listens to the upper caste men sitting around the well. And what are they talking about?
The hypocrisy is staggering.
They're casually boasting about cheating people, dodging legal trouble, and literally stealing sheep. It instantly made me think of modern systemic hypocrisy.
How so?
It's like how the guy stealing billions in a corporate suite is often considered an upstanding citizen, while a desperate person stealing bread to survive is treated as a menace to society.
That's a perfect modern parallel. Premchand is exposing the absolute farce of purity. Gangi is risking her life out of pure, selfless devotion and love for her husband, yet society deems her untouchable and legally bars her from basic survival resources.
Meanwhile, the men who control the water are openly admitting to profound moral corruption, theft, fraud, cruelty. Yet society deems them pure enough to own the well.
And Premchand doesn't preach to the reader about this injustice. He just places Gangi's moral purity right next to the Thakur's moral Raat and lets the stark reality of the hypocrisy speak for itself.
That theme of deeply ingrained societal rules definitely bleeds into the complex family dynamics in these stories. Let's look at the joint family structure. In a story called Alagozha, which translates to the partition, we meet a young man named Raghu.
Raghu is the ultimate provider.
He is. He sacrifices his own youth, delays his own marital happiness, and works himself to the bone to care for his stepmother, Panna, and his younger step-siblings. He even sells his own precious jewelry just to buy a milk cow so the children can have proper nutrition.
To understand the weight of this, we have to recognize that the traditional joint family in 1920s agrarian India wasn't just about relatives living under one roof.
It was an economic unit, right?
Exactly. It was a strict economic survival unit. Resources were pooled, labor was shared, and the collective was always prioritized over the individual. Raghu represents the idealized version of this duty.
He is willing to completely obliterate his own desires for the collective good of the household.
He is.
But the friction arrives when Raghu's wife, Mulia, finally moves in. She takes one look at the situation and absolutely refuses to participate.
She refuses to be an unpaid servant to his stepfamily.
Right. She demands a separation of the household, a partition, 2 separate stoves. Raghu is utterly heartbroken. The very thought of dividing the household tears him apart.
It's a massive conflict of values.
But let me play devil's advocate here. Isn't Mulia just being incredibly selfish? Raghu is trying to keep his family alive, and she comes in and immediately demands to tear it apart.
It certainly looks selfish through the lens of traditional duty. But if you look deeper, Mulia's demand is born from a desperate need for basic self-preservation.
Because she'd just be swallowed by the system.
Exactly. Raghu's model of the family requires him to essentially immolate himself, to burn his own future to keep others warm. Mulia sees that she is expected to be collateral damage in his martyrdom, and she refuses.
It highlights the inherent crushing tension in these joint family structures.
The collective survival often relies on the extreme, unfair exploitation of individuals.
And Premchand brilliantly contrasts Raghu's devoted sacrifice with a completely different family dynamic in Betonwali Vidhwa, the widow with sons.
Historiad Philmati.
Yes. After her husband dies, you'd assume her 4 educated, well-off sons would take care of her. But the reality is a nightmare. Her sons and their wives slowly and methodically strip Phulmati of all her authority, her household keys, and her wealth.
They push her to the absolute margins of the very home she built with her husband.
It's the horror of filial piety inverted.
Phulmati becomes a ghost in her own house. She's reduced to doing menial chores while her children thrive on her late husband's legacy. Premchand is showing us that the institution of the joint family is entirely dependent on the morality of the individuals within it.
When the individuals are greedy, the family unit becomes a site of brutal disenfranchisement.
And it builds to a truly devastating end.
It really does. Phulmati, deeply depressed and marginalized, is forced into fetching water from the river, a dangerous chore she never had to do before. While at the riverbank, she slips and drowns in the swollen, violent waves of the river Ganga.
Her family's neglect literally kills her.
And it's wild to think about how fetching water connects her right back to Gangi from the earlier story. Water is quite literally life and death in these narratives, and who controls it controls everything.
Exactly. The family structure failed Phulmati just as completely as the caste structure failed Gangi. In both cases, the vulnerable are sacrificed for the comfort of those in power.
But here is where we see a fascinating shift. When we look at the women in these stories, regardless of their family situation or their class, they possess an incredible, quiet strength.
They aren't just passive victims.
Not at all. Let's talk about Ghaswali, the grass cutter. Mulia is a lower caste woman who cuts grass for a living. A wealthy, arrogant, upper-class man named Chain Singh corners her alone in the fields one day and confesses his inappropriate desires for her.
Now, given the brutal power dynamics we saw with Gangi at the well, you'd expect Mulia to cower in fear.
But she doesn't. She fiercely rebukes him. She stands her ground, maintains her absolute dignity, and actively shames him, pointing out his moral corruption to his face.
She leverages her moral superiority against his societal superiority. Her dignity acts as a shield.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Chainsing doesn't get angry or violent, which frankly is what you might expect from an entitled man in that era.
No, he doesn't.
He is so profoundly moved and humbled by her moral clarity that he undergoes a complete character transformation. He backs off entirely. And later, when other men make inappropriate remarks about Malia, Chainsing actually steps up and defends her.
It's a remarkable shift.
But I have to ask, does that actually happen? An oppressor just backing down because he's told off? Or is Premchand being a bit idealistic here?
It might lean slightly idealistic, sure, but Premchand is making a crucial philosophical point about the power of absolute, unyielding dignity. Chainsing is used to people bowing to his wealth and caste.
And Gulli refuses to play that game.
Which completely short-circuits his entitlement. Her unshakable moral center pierces through his unearned societal authority. Premchand often imbues his female characters with this kind of inner steel. They are the true moral compasses of his world.
And that fierce strength absolutely isn't limited to the working class. Just look at the story Shikar, the hunt.
A great example.
We meet Vasudha, who is a wealthy aristocrat. She's the pampered, somewhat neglected wife of Kunwar Gajraj Singh. Her husband is a hyper-masculine guy who cares way more about hunting than he does about her. But Vasudha insists on joining him on a highly dangerous tiger hunt.
Which is a massive, radical departure from her expected societal role. She is stepping completely out of the quiet domestic sphere and directly into her husband's violent, adrenaline-fueled world.
And the climax of this story is just awe-inspiring. They are sitting up on a raised wooden platform of Mashan in the pitch-black jungle. Suddenly, the man-eating tiger they are hunting attacks them.
It leaps up, shaking the entire platform.
In the chaos and absolute terror, the seasoned hunter, Kunwar, drops his gun. He is completely paralyzed and defenseless. But Vasudha, the pampered wife that everyone underestimated, doesn't freeze.
She takes charge.
She grabs her own heavy rifle, leans directly into the danger, literally shoves the gun right into the tiger's mouth and pulls the trigger. She saves her husband's life in a split second. But beyond just being a cool action sequence, what is the actual societal shockwave of an event like this?
The shockwave is that it completely shatters the hyper-patriarchal illusion their entire society is built on. By saving him when he failed, Vasudha completely flips the power dynamic of their marriage.
It's a total role reversal.
Think about it. Her husband's entire identity, his authority over her, was justified by his supposed bravery and his role as the protector. In one single decisive action, Vasudha proves that courage, capability, and composure under fire are not tied to gender.
Premchand's women step up to protect their dignity and their loved ones precisely when the men around them and the systems around them completely fail.
It is so incredibly powerful.
As we reach the end of this journey through Premchand's world, I want to turn this over to you, listening right now. Think about the people you interact with, the societal structures we navigate today. Which of these characters do you see in the modern world?
Are there still Hamids out there, quietly sacrificing their own joy for the survival of their families?
Or Ganges fighting desperately for basic human resources against a hypocritical, rigged system?
And I will leave you with a final thought to mull over. We have seen how poverty and rigid societal rules strip away our innocence and force us into pure survival mode.
Whether it is Helku enduring a freezing night, or Gaia abandoning his childhood friendship to appease the caste system.
Given all that, perhaps true freedom isn't just about acquiring financial wealth or moving up the social ladder. Perhaps true, lasting freedom is the deliberate liberation of the mind from the societal prejudices that tell us who we are supposed to be.
That is a phenomenal point to reflect on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the literary brilliance of Munshi Premchand.
It's been a great discussion.
If you want more content that unpacks the world's greatest stories and extracts these kinds of deep, memorable insights, please humbly remember to subscribe to the Simplified Summary YouTube channel. Smash that like button and drop a comment below sharing which of Premchand's characters resonated with you the most.
Did you relate to the practical resilience of Hamid or the fierce, expectation-shattering courage of Vasudha?
Let us know in the comments. Until next time, keep reading, keep questioning, and keep exploring.